Extreme Foolishness TV here. Today I'll be reacting to Brian Kemp's press conference blasting Stacy Abrams, Joe Biden, because Major League Baseball pulled out the All-Star Game out of Atlanta. I'll be giving you guys my insights. Obviously, I'll be giving you my extreme foolishness analysis. Let's go. This is Extreme Foolishness TV. I talk about extreme foolishness here. Major League Baseball pulled out the All-Star Game from Atlanta. Now it looks like the tourist industry in Atlanta will lose about $100 million. Brian Kemp is pissed. He did a press conference blasting Stacy Abrams, blasting Joe Biden, blasting the leftist, blasting the radical left, blasting the dangerous left, blasting the deranged left as the reason why Major League Baseball decided to pull the All-Star Game out of Atlanta. He has refused to look at the mirror and hold himself responsible for signing the bill into law, the voter suppression bill. He wants to talk about SB 202, this bill that was signed into law, and he wants to talk about election integrity. First of all, how can he talk about election integrity when Brian Kemp himself has no integrity? When he was Secretary of State, he purged the rolls in his favor to beat then candidate Stacy Abrams. Secondly, the premise upon which this SB 202 was passed was based on a lie. There was no fraud in the last election. One of the chief purveyors of the fraudulent campaign, Sidney Powell, has come out to say that no reasonable person will believe her fraud claims to be true. In other words, he said the whole fraud claims was a lie. Now Brian Kemp has not looked himself in the eye. Secondly, when Trump punked Brian Kemp, called him a rhino and all sorts of names, what did Brian Kemp do? He went into the basement, went to hide. He didn't say a word. But now all of a sudden, Brian Kemp has had spine surgery. And now he's coming out there attacking Stacy Abrams, attacking Joe Biden, and the radical left and all the leftists as the reason why Major League Baseball chose to pull out the All-Star Game out of Atlanta. In his press conference, he said SB 202 expands access to voting. That is a big lie. Drop boxes have been reduced. Early voting times have been reduced. Drop boxes before used to be outside in the last election. You could drop them after hours and they had cameras. There was no case of any drop box being tampered with. But now, Brian Kemp claims this is all about security of the elections. When there was no problems in the past, why are you doing this now? Because you lost. It's been fine all the way till the Republicans lost. But now, the drop boxes are put inside the offices, so minorities and all the low-income workers who work from 9 to 5 cannot drop their absentee ballots in the drop box because it opens at 9 and closes at 5. Unlike how it was before where you could drop it after hours. It's like taking out the blue drop boxes for mailing your mail and putting them inside the post office where the office is. So once they close the post office at 5 or whenever time to close, you can no longer drop your mail. Does that sound like expanding access to voting? Tell me. Secondly, he said that poll workers can give water to people who are standing in line. Does that make sense to you, Brian Kemp? This is the same Brian Kemp that said that he did not know that asymptomatic people could spread COVID-19 at the time when it was public knowledge and the CDC is down the street from his office. That lets you know how much of an extreme fool Brian Kemp is. He said that how can election officials be handing out water when they're busy working the polls inside? They're not going to be coming outside giving out water. That is not their job. That is why you had a lot of outside organizations giving people water, for crying out loud. Water. But Brian Kemp doesn't want people to give folks water. He said poll workers and election officials can do that. Is that what you want them doing instead of working the polls, making sure people are getting in and out of the lines? You can barely get enough people to volunteer as poll workers, let alone have them give out water. Another thing is that this whole voter thing, they keep talking about ID. ID is about maybe less than 5% of the entire voter suppression bill. But a lot of racists and all those folks who want to defend this voter suppression bill are quick to say, show your ID, show your ID, as if that is the only thing people are talking about. To get an absentee ballot based on this voter suppression bill, you need to make copies of your ID and mail it in with your application. Most folks do not have printers at home or copiers or scanners. So how are they going to now scan their ID, now print it out, and now mail with their absentee ballot? The previous system had a signature match, and there was no fraud because it matched the signature with each elector's ballot. So again, there was no fraud, widespread fraud in the last election. They just wanted to change it because they feel like it will benefit them. One thing Brian Kemp omitted in his press conference, he didn't mention the fact that state officials can take over elections from county officials. This is designed to take over the elections from Fulton County. We know where they're going. And people are not stupid. That is why people are protesting. And also, Brian Kemp attacks Joe Biden, saying that in Delaware there's no excuse absentee ballot in Delaware, or there's no early voting in Delaware. That lets you know how much sense this Brian Kemp has. As a matter of fact, I'm ashamed that he's the governor of my home state. Because if you look at the data, you will know that Delaware barely has 1 million people, the entire state of Delaware. In Metro Atlanta area has over 6 million people. That is more than 6 times the population of Delaware. The entire Georgia population is at least 10 million plus. So how can you compare early voting in Georgia with a population of 10 million plus, most of which are concentrated in the metro area, maybe 5 million, 6 million or so, to a state whose entire population is 900,000 or plus, less than a million? You do not need that much of an early voter because you don't have that much of a population. But he's not smart enough to realize he's comparing apples to elephants, because that's just who Brian Kemp is. He doesn't have the intellectual heft to be able to process this kind of information. He doesn't have it. That's why he would compare Georgia to Delaware and say, oh, Joe Biden's not complaining about Delaware. I bet you he would compare it to Rhode Island or a small state where you don't have the issues that we have here in Georgia. Issues where there have been long lines in Fulton County. People waiting in lines for 11 hours. So what they're trying to do right now is pretty much reduce the number of polling stations in Fulton County to artificially inflate the lines, don't allow people to get water, and frustrate them. That's exactly what they're trying to do, and we know this game. If you look at their intent in the first place, they tried to cancel Sunday completely. But when they didn't have any non-discriminatory response as to why they wanted to cancel Sunday, now they took it up. Because people who voted on Sundays had to show their IDs to vote. But they didn't have any pretty much legitimate reason for wanting to cancel Sunday other than targeting black voters, many of whom vote after church on Sundays. Now, with the new voter suppression bill that he just signed, he claims that there are optional Sundays and optional weekends, maybe 2 Sundays or 2 weekends that people can vote. Why? Why don't you make it a mandatory day that people can vote on Sundays and let people go vote? So this whole Brian Kemp, I think it's a good thing that Major League Baseball pulled the Allstar Game out of Georgia. It's about time that people know that there are consequences for actions. People are no longer going to sit idle by while these legislators pass voter suppression laws like they did in the past, mimicking Jim Crow. People are not going to stand for that anymore. People are going to talk and protest, and hopefully more of these companies will get on board and cut funding from a lot of these politicians. So that way they will know next time that actions have consequences. I heard they're trying to do the same thing in Texas. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that Brian Kemp makes a lot of sense in his press conference? Do you think this whole was a good idea for Major League Baseball to pull out? I think so. I think sometimes you gotta hurt people in their pockets, and a lot of these tourism businesses were hurt. We're losing out of $100 million. What they need to do next time that they're trying to pass this kind of stuff, they need to oppose it so that their pockets will be saved. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. Like this video, give it a thumbs up if you like this content, so that way it can help the algorithm. Share this video with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so that anytime I upload more videos, you'll be in the know. Stay safe out there. Oppose voter suppression. Most importantly, say no to extreme foolishness.